Let's jump over to your home state of Ohio, because the last week outside of the assassination attempt, the big story was whether cats are being eaten in Springfield, Ohio, and how many goose or geese people are taking out of rivers and doing God knows what with. So let me read a tweet here from Nick Soder. I thought this was pretty interesting and probably will go underreported since it goes against the narrative. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is sending $2.5 million and state troopers to Springfield after illegal migrants take over. But wait, I thought the media said the town's migrant crisis is fake news. Another day, another lie. The governor says Haitian migrants are creating health and traffic issues, and we've been hearing reports for days that illegal migrants who have no insurance are crashing into innocent Americans and simply driving off. These dramatic surges impact every citizen of the community, every citizen, DeWine said, noting additional influxes are occurring in Findlay and Lima, Ohio. Moms who have to wait hours in a waiting room with a sick child, everyone who drives on the streets, and it affects children who go to school in more crowded classrooms. Vivek, can you talk a little bit about perhaps the reality of what's going on there? Because we're getting all sorts of wild reports. On one hand, from MSNBC saying there's nothing to see there whatsoever. There's no evidence of any crime, any problems, or anything else, to all sorts of audio of 911 calls of people saying they're seeing these things happen. Or maybe you could speak more broadly about what's going on demographically in Ohio right now. It's obviously a swing state, so I'll just give you a softball there, and you take it in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, I obviously was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I live in Columbus today. Springfield's right in between. I spent a lot of time in Springfield as a kid, actually. You and I were talking before. I'm an avid tennis player. I used to play tennis at a tournament at Wittenberg University in Springfield. I have cousins who are just same as my age, grew up in Springfield. We would spend a lot of time together. So for me, it's just almost, it wasn't my hometown, but it's a place that's really familiar to my youth, almost as if it was my hometown. So it's a little bit painful to watch what's happening there, not just in the context of the national news, but what's happened to this city in Ohio. And, you know, I think in some ways the left-wing media got exactly its wish by fixating, this is their classic tactic, on some sort of more peripheral issue around the edge rather than to actually focus on the essence of what's happening. And here's the essence of what's happening, Dave. I think it is a divide and conquer strategy from the top, from the Biden-Harris administration. It's a classic move, and I can talk about other areas where they pulled this move. But in here, if you're literally going to take tens of thousands of migrants from a country that are not ready yet to assimilate in the United States, don't speak the language, may not speak it or understand it well enough to follow traffic laws, require social services at a scale much greater than even people who already live here, you are necessarily inviting some kind of backlash from that community. And the reality is many of these people were brought here on temporary protective status. Note the word temporary at the front of that. And were literally dumped in towns like Springfield in ways that the way I look at this is, of all of the 70,000 some odd people in Springfield, including the native people who live there, as well as the migrants who were brought there, I don't blame any of them for what's going on in Springfield. Fact of the matter is, if many Americans were in the position of Haitians living in Haiti under really awful conditions, we'd probably do the same thing if we were offered the ability to get to the United States of America. So I don't blame the Haitians who were there. I don't blame the native residents of Springfield. I blame the policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which in many ways have turned these Haitian migrants into political pawns to do what? To provoke a backlash that they're then able to blame. This is a familiar divide and conquer playbook. It's exactly what you see the same administration pulling with respect to their so-called anti-racist policies. There is no better way to create anti-black racism in this country than to take something of value away from somebody else based on their skin color, if they're white or they're Asian. That's exactly what they've done with these affirmative action programs, which is part of why you then do see an uptick in anti-black racism in response to taking something else away from somebody else based on their skin color. And so these are just predictable responses to these policies that pit people in the United States of America against one another. That's the predictable response. Of course, they knew that was the predictable response. And yet then blame the other side for dividing. No, I don't think you get to do that. And I think the reality is our side does own the moral high ground here. We view every human being with dignity. It's not the fault of the individual illegal migrants who are just taking perfect advantage of what the United States is offering them. It's the fault of the United States for failing to select for the right kinds of immigrants to enter this country. And the right kind of immigrants to enter the country should be those who maximally improve the lives of Americans who are already here and who already have a deep commitment to the civic ideals of the United States, speak the language and are able to assimilate into the U.S. That's the hard truth. And it's the uncomfortable reality that this is somewhere between gross negligence and intentionality, a divide and conquer strategy that sadly, Dave, has worked. We're seeing that in action in places like Springfield today.